Thanks very much. It's great to be here at Ames. Had dinner with Pete last night, a few other folks. And to be here among friends. Just saw Rich Godwin, who got me my first job at NSS. Thank you, Rich. And I don't know if Rick is still hungover, but Rick, was a really important player in the early Yuri's Night stuff. And the Space Frontier Foundation, it's definitely come a long way since it was in some crappy little office in the valley. It's had a profound effect on the debate over the last 10 years, and I think the fact that there's so many really important people like Bob Cabana and the other folks coming, obviously Deputy Administrator Garber. I mean, I think that's a huge statement of where the debate has moved, and I know that was discussed a lot yesterday, so I won't get into it. But it is the world has shifted, and I've only been a part of the space activist community for, I don't know, maybe 12 years or something like that. And the guys who are the real old school guys, Jim Muncie and everybody, I know the shift is probably even more profound for them. So anyway, well done to this conference and to the organization. The other thing that I think is really great about Space Frontier Foundation is that they've made a real big effort to get young people involved and to then elevate them up the ranks. And I think that's the future of space is to bring in new folks and to let them take more responsibility as they prove that they can. And I think that core group of conference organizers who are now moving into the workforce over the last 5 years. Brian, I think just took a job with SNC, and I mean those are the leaders of tomorrow, and it's really interesting to see them develop and grow and drink with Rick on conference night. So anyway, I just have a half an hour, so I'm not going to go on too long. Hopefully we have a time for a couple questions at the end. But what I wanted to do this morning was to do two things. One is to give you a little update on Virgin Galactic. Two is to tell you a little bit more about the spaceship company, which I don't always talk about. But the spaceship company is hiring a lot right now in Mojave, growing at a pretty quick pace. And there's a lot of exciting things happening there, so I wanted to tell you a little bit that. And then I wanted to close with some general comments on where we are in space now and how folks, should, or some ways that people could be viewing the current discussion. So that's the agenda for the morning, and we'll see how that goes. Here, of course, is my favorite picture. It's the picture of Spaceship One, and what I thought I'd do is, my guess is that about 98% of you know what Virgin Galactic is, but so that was the picture taken by Brian Binney, and ultimately that's our product. We hope to share the space experience with hundreds, and then thousands, and then someday tens of thousands, or even millions of people over the coming years. And that's a big mission, and it's really exciting when you think about it. I just watched the IMAX movie Blue Planet, which was just this fantastic movie. If any of you have seen it, it just reinforces just the amazing experience of going above the planet and looking down, and that's ultimately what drives us, is to bring that space experience to dramatically more people over time. This is just a picture of our vehicles, Spaceship 2 and White Knight 2. I think everybody knows them. That's a flight over the San Francisco area a few months ago, and when we were helping Virgin America open up Terminal 2, which I'll just give a little plug at SFO, is I think probably the best terminal in the United States now. It's sort of like living in the future there. So I hope everybody flies back to their respective destinations. Keith, to DC using Virgin America. That's my little plug. So one slide, for those of you who don't know that much about Virgin Galactic, here's a couple points. So we aspire to be the world's first space line, offering suborbital spaceflight. We've got a vehicle manufacturing joint venture called the Spaceship Company, which I'll talk a little bit about. That's a JV with Scaled, who's our partner on building the prototypes. The vehicle holds 8 people, 2 pilots and 6 passengers, and costs $200,000. We, it's based on technology that's been to space. It's basically an expanded version of Spaceship One and White Knight One. We've got now a little bit over 440 customers and $58 million in deposits, representing almost $90 million of future ticket sales, which I think is just encouraging for the entire industry, not just for us. Last year, as I think most folks know, we closed an investment of $280 million from an Abu Dhabi-based fund called ABAR, which valued the company at a bit over $900 million, which is, again, I think another thing that's good for the industry as a whole. It's good to have new startups being valued at nearly $1 billion because it means that others can shoot for that valuation as well. And then, of course, the last thing is that we're the anchor tenant at Spaceport America, which I'll also show some fresh pictures of towards the end of the presentation. Development status, I think everybody knows. Basically, we've got 2 airframes that seem to fly pretty well, and now we need to put the rocket motor in. White Knight 2, which is the carrier aircraft, has flown 68, I guess, flights to date. The performance envelope is pretty much explored right now. We feel pretty good about that. Spaceship Two is in the midst of its test flight program. It's now had a bunch of captive carry flights, 15 glide flights, and two feather flights. And again, I think probably most of you have seen it, but just for those of you who haven't, is there any way we could just show the feather video real quick? Could we switch over to that? And this was a big milestone last year, or sorry, not last year, this year, but just the feather flight. Quick 30-second shot of this. It's the first time that we tested essentially the re-entry configuration of the vehicle, which is.
White Knight.
Good Delta piece.
I'll just let you listen to it.
Pressure's look good. Have a roll off there, good.
Look at that beautiful.
Feathers up.
Good.
It's the first time they ever did this, so it was an exciting moment.
Good pressures.
Come on, baby. Come on.
Happy at half. Okay, to lock.
That's the Microsoft
Okay,
thing
lock.
that your vehicle is locked
Locks are moving.
for right now.
Feathers down and locked.
And base, copies all, down lock, well done.
So that was a great moment for the program, and well done to Scaled and the amazing pilots there for the great work that they're doing. We've got a great partnership with Scaled that was just I'll talk about this in a second, but I was out at Oshkosh yesterday and had a bunch of folks, and those guys are rightly heroes out there at Oshkosh. So we've been making some hires recently. Yesterday we announced that we just hired a CFO, our first CFO. I think some of you probably know Ken Sunshine. Does anybody know Ken? I'm sure a few of you do. Terrific guy. Hoyt, of course knows him. He's, well, you can see here, CFO at a bunch of different space-related companies. He was a senior guy at Orbital Sciences during really their main growth phase in the 10 years where they were growing. They raised about $2 billion, probably with Hoyt's help, I don't know, over the course of that period. But he's actually a technical guy at heart. I think he's a computer scientist and with an MBA, and that's a really great combination. So we're very, very pleased to have Ken on board. We also have some exciting announcements coming up. I'm not going to announce them today, but we just went through a pilot selection process. Now, sort of here's a sampling of the pilots that we've got now, but this is sort of going down the road. That's, of course, Brian Binney on the left, who's a Scaled pilot, and of course won the X Prize. On the far right, is a guy named Dave Mackay, who's our chief pilot. Terrific guy from the UK. He was a Harrier jet pilot for the Royal Air Force, and just an incredibly impressive individual. He was at their equivalent of the equivalent of Edwards for test flight of fast jets for many years, and then became a Virgin Atlantic captain. So he flew the heavy jets, and that's a really nice combination of experiences for us. Somebody who's flown, fast jets that go, faster than Mach 1, as well as somebody who has the heavy experience, which links more to the peculiarities of flying our carrier aircraft. So that kind of experience is really great. We just went through a selection process where we had over 500 pilots apply to be sort of the next cadre. We're going to hire 3 folks over the course of the next 12 months or so. And that'll sort of round out our side. Of course, Scaled's got their pilots, but we want to have sort of 4 of our own to get started. And I'm not going to announce them today, but we've got some just real studs. It's really kind of, I think to a greater or lesser extent, it's the right stuff sort of for our age. If you want to be at the pointy end of a really fast vehicle, it's going to be these suborbital reusable craft that are going to be where it's at. And I think folks sort of instinctively know that. Rick Searfoss is a good friend, flies for X-Corps. I mean, they're just really amazing people. And so stay tuned for that. We'll announce this guy and have to have a suitably theatrical, like the right stuff where they walk down that corridor and out into the spotlight. So this is our new hangar. We just built a hangar, and why is that exciting? It's a hangar that we're going to build spaceships in, and those are the folks who are going to be working in the hangar. Those are folks from the spaceship company, and the headline is we're hiring. We're hiring at a fast clip. There are 30 job openings now on the spaceship company website. So just again, TSC is the shorthand for the spaceship company, which is this JV that we have between us and Scaled. And the whole idea behind TSC was that Scaled would build the first set of vehicles that we'll put into commercial operation, but that after that, Scaled's normal model is to basically, you pass the designs off to someone else, and they build ongoing copies, maybe with some refinements. And so that's the model that we set up when we started this project many years ago, was that Scaled would build those first vehicles, test them, we'll get those into commercial operation, and sort of meanwhile, or in parallel, Scaled will be transferring the knowledge required to build those vehicles to this other organization, in this case the spaceship company. And we've placed an initial order with the spaceship company for 5 spaceships and 2 White Knights. Now, the first couple of vehicles we hope will be substantially the same as the Scaled vehicles, and then down the road, they may start integrating improvements or refinements to the design, as you would with any sort of ongoing aerospace production line. But the headline here is that, just in case you haven't gotten it so far, we're hiring. And so those of you who are, graduating, or those of you who know how to manufacture things, or even those of you who do other things beyond engineering or manufacture or production, I encourage you to go look out at the website, because TSC is hiring all kinds of folks right now, and there'll be many more jobs coming up over the course of the next 6 months, and it's a really great environment to be working in. I mean, these are people who, we've got a lot of young people, but we also have folks who've been around for decades, and they're sort of jointly inspired by the idea that, they're the early Boeing or whatever of this new sector, that they're going to be in the ground floor essentially to be building the first of what we hope to be many vehicles over the course of the coming years, and so it's a really exciting environment. A lot of great people. We now have 3 facilities up at Mojave. We have one building that's sort of right next to Scaled. We're about to take another building that's close by, and then this is the third one, which is on the sort of the new runway spur up there at Mojave. I don't know how many of you know that, but it's a big hangar, and you know, just a good sign that we're continuing to expand and really positioning ourselves, you know, for a lot of growth, really. So we want to, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, but basically through the work with Scaled and TSC and the spaceport, we're gearing up for what we hope to be very, you know, high rate of operations. You know, a rate of operations that can't be sustained by just one vehicle pair, that require multiple vehicle pairs, and that's an exciting future, because with those higher flight rates, you know, obviously we'll fly more people to space, you know, hope get more revenue, but also the future where we reach some of these milestones in terms of reusability, which I think are so important to the future. It's an exciting environment. So I just close this piece of the talk with a couple pictures from the spaceport. I know you guys have all seen it. That's the rendering from Norman Foster. That's a real picture now. This, for those of you who don't know, this is in southern New Mexico. It's about an hour north of Las Cruces, and middle of nowhere, but perfect place to launch things into space, and particularly reusable suborbital vehicles into space, and just an amazingly beautiful site. And so here are a couple of the latest shots. That's one that I think many people have seen before, but here are a couple. Here's a new one, and that's our terminal hangar facility, which is not a very sexy name. We'll unveil a new name for it later on this year. But this is the facility that's designed by Sir Norman Foster, and I think he did a great job. Once all the glass is up, you can see the glass is now up on the right side. The doors are on the left side. Those open up, and they have sort of two openings on both sides. It's a very green building. It was designed to sort of fit into the landscape. So on the back, you can't really see it terrifically well, but those sort of dark areas are big earth berms, and we've got these circulating tubes, and basically the wind from the local area sweeps in, and it sort of has this passive thermal system, and then it goes into the hangar, and we save a lot of energy that way. We also sort of put it down into the environment. The vision was sort of that, you know, that this would not be something that was, you know, this 30-story thing in the middle of the beautiful New Mexican desert, that it would be something that would be sort of tucked away, and that, you know, you'd approach it from that side, and you wouldn't even really see it that much, but it was, you know, a journey. Basically, the astronauts will go through that opening in the middle, and it'll be sort of like the hero's journey, where they, you know, we were talking about the right stuff shot, where the people are walking down that hallway. You know, we're going to have our folks do that. They're going to walk through that, and they'll start their journey to space, and it's going to be tremendously exciting. Then you sort of emerge out on the other side. There's a passageway that goes over the vehicles that will be a pretty neat thing to experience, and then you emerge out on the other side, and there's an observation decks and various other things. But, you know, this is where we're going to be operating our headquarters. You know, we did a deal with New Mexico several years ago to partner, sort of, if you build it, we'll come, and I think we're both on track to make it all happen very soon, which is exciting. So anyway, it's a great facility, and hopefully some of you will be able to come down and visit over the coming months and years. They actually have just started up tours, and so that's fun. And they also have other customers. Boeing is using it now, and Lockheed, and various other folks are using it for different things. I don't even know all the things that it's being used for. But what's exciting is that while we're the anchor tenant, we're not going to be the only folks who are using it. And they also have some good vertical launch facilities. So for those of you who are interested in that kind of stuff, you know, that's good. So so that's sort of a quick update on where we are. But I wanted to spend just a couple minutes talking about where we were from a more of a space policy perspective, and because this group has had enormous influence on that debate, and I want to bring in two thoughts to that. So I was at Oshkosh yesterday, and how many people have been to Oshkosh? So a few. For those of you who don't know, Oshkosh is the gathering of the EAA, which is basically the Experiment Aircraft Association. Started off as essentially a home-built thing, but it's grown into basically a mecca for people who love planes. Just some statistics for you. So they have 500,000 come. Oshkosh is their annual sort of fly-in. 500,000 people come to this thing every year. They have over 10,000 planes fly in, 2,000 show planes. They have at least 1,000 press show up. It's really an amazing thing. I mean, if you like aviation or space, you go out there and they're just fields filled with planes. And of course, my thought was, well, how do we get here from the space community? This took about, I don't know, maybe about 90 years from the perspective of aviation. How do we get here? Here being the equivalent of Oshkosh, and I think the point that I would make is that while we cannot be sure that the current policy, national policy, will get us to that future, I think we can be reasonably sure that the path that we were on before would not get us to that future. And I want to talk a little bit about that. What is clear, I was just watching the debt debate this morning, and I don't know how that'll work out, but what's clear is that discretionary funds are going down. What's clear is that if we were going to pour all our money into another Apollo-type program, there would be very little funds for innovation that would lower the cost of space transportation. And if we didn't achieve that, then we will not achieve the sort of the space future that we all dream about. I really do believe, and I was involved in some of these conversations, that the underlying motivation for these new national policy changes is a desire to go further and to go sustainably. It seems quite clear to me that if the only way that we could do beyond LEO exploration was through sort of old or more traditional techniques, that activity would thus be constrained to government actors, and that in turn, we would never have that sort of exothermic expansion into the solar system. And so, what is motivating, I think, this policy is absolutely not a desire to kill human spaceflight, but it is a desire to essentially press the reset button on human spaceflight and to try to get it into a pathway that really can fulfill our dreams. And that's what's sort of ironic about the debate. I think the policy is being accused of sort of killing human spaceflight. In fact, I think the idea behind it, at least, is to encourage human spaceflight to thrive ultimately. And that's why I've been so disappointed with one piece of it. I think the commercial crew piece has been discussed a lot yesterday, so I won't focus on that. But I think equally important is this innovation piece. And a major part of the president's proposal was to increase the funding on essentially basic R&D or applied R&D. And I think that is a crucial part of this overall strategy, because if we're not making those investments, and frankly, if NASA's not doing it, the only other sort of major government funding is military, which has implications for its commercial usage. So I think it's really important that NASA be given funds to do substantial funds to do basic research. They've got a fantastic leader in Bobby Braun, and I think it's just a really crucial thing. So I would encourage all of you, as you sort of go and talk with your communities, but also talk to Congress, that this really is a two-part thing. That there's the sort of the space flight part, but there's also the innovation part, because that's where ultimately we need to get these breakthroughs, because we're not just going to do it with standard chemical propulsion. We're not going to explore the solar system based on the technologies that we have today. I mean, and that's okay. I mean, because we're going to have to learn new stuff. There's absolutely zero chance that we've discovered it all. And so, but unless we're making those investments, then we're sort of stuck in this operational paradigm where we're just spending all our money on a certain type of ops, leaving no money for other types of investment. And so I think it's just a critical thing that we be able to support that side of the equation, and I just wanted to say that. I always love to take at least maybe 2 questions. I know we're almost at 9, and I want to keep the day on track because there's a lot of great stuff coming up. So why don't I pause there? Thanks for your time, and maybe if we have time, we'll do 2 questions. Does that sound good?
I'm going to ask the elephant in the room question. Without a rocket motor, it's just an airplane. Can you talk about the state and development of the next piece?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, it's less useful without a rocket. Yeah, I think, well, you saw some video from Mark yesterday. SNC is doing, I think, a good job. It's hard. They've had to scale up the hybrid from a relatively smaller version to a bigger version, but we've seen some good progress over the summer, and so we expect that we'll be flying to space next year. There's a question back there.
Hey George, what's happening with, I heard that you're going to be doing some suborbital science experiments and carrying some science experiments, stuff like that. Is that something that's moving ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Rich. That's a good question. I think that's going to be a really exciting market. And so we signed a deal with Alan Stern at Southwest Research Institute, and we're talking with a bunch of other scientists now about them using the interior. And we've got a very large interior in our vehicle, and so we'll be able to fly big things. We'll be able to do deployments inside the cabin. And I'm personally excited about flying researchers and even maybe students at some point into space. I think it'd be really great. And another Space Frontier project, the Teachers in Space program, is just a fantastic thing. I think we should get behind that too and get hundreds of teachers flying into space every year. So that's going to be good.
George, I got a question from the online forum. Just a reminder, you can submit questions online and through the text messages. The question here is about Spaceship 3 and future orbital point-to-point transportation. What are Virgin's plans for those?
Yeah. Richard's really excited. Richard Branson is very excited about that. I think for the technical folks in the audience, it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's you have to go to a substantial fraction of orbital velocity to do longer range point-to-point. But it's absolutely something that we love to do. We still think that the air launch platform is a good one for that, for the same reasons that it's good for suborbital. And we think that having sort of a winged design is crucial because at the other end you're going to have to steer into a pattern at an airport and land. So I think the biggest challenge with that is sort of how do you go from a prototype to something that people who are flying on business jets would fly. And the key thing there is a high flight rate. We've got to show that it really is safe, and that's going to take years. But I do think that the investments that we're making now will sort of lead us down that road. And frankly, I think the point-to-point market will eventually be significantly bigger than the suborbital tourism market. So it's absolutely something that we're interested in, but for the time being, we're very focused on just getting Spaceship 2 flying into space.
Thank you very much, George.
Sure. Thanks.
George, thank you. I look forward to the day when we're selling tickets for you guys in the auditorium outside. So, our next